Welcome back to the City Current Radio Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're honored to be with our next guest, Cristina Duncan. She's a Senior Vice President and Administrative Director of Nursing with Travel Nurses, Inc., an OR Nurses nationwide company. And Cristina, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you. How are you, Jeremy?
Doing very well. So let's start with some context, some background. Give us some context for Travel Nurses, Inc.
All right. So Travel Nurses, Inc. is a sister company. Actually, it was born out of our parent company, OR Nurses Nationwide. We have been in business here in the Mid-South over 30 plus years, probably about 33 now. So we were born out of that company. We kind of came into the travel industry several years ago, but Travel Nurses, Inc. was actually founded about 3 years ago, as far as really kind of our DBA. So we are an extension of that being our parent company.
And give us an idea of what you do. Let's dive into the actual service you provide, and then we'll talk about the really cool story of being kind of run by nurses, which is really cool. So you know the industry very well and you know all the ins and outs, but talk about what you do.
All right. So we as a company, Travel Nurses, Inc., we deploy nurses across the United States. We're a contingent workforce solution. So we're, a lot of people refer to us as agency nurses or supplemental staffing. So what we do is there's facilities nationwide, especially now in our current culture with COVID going on, that find themselves short-staffed. So what we do is we supply those nurses, usually for about 13-week contracts, anywhere in the United States. We do business. And so what we do is we get to onboard and recruit talent, and then we get to find destinations for them. And then we onboard them and we send them on the adventure. So it's a great opportunity for a nurse. I, coming to the company many years ago, was a travel nurse myself many years back. So it's kind of fun to come in years later into my career and be in the current role that I am and kind of see how and oversee the nurses as they're going out and understand what they're going through, because I was there myself.
Yeah, share a little bit of just your personal storyline in terms of understanding what it's like and the power of it, and then obviously now stepping in and helping to manage that process. So talk about for you personally.
So I have myself been a nurse, registered nurse now for, this is my 30th year this year. For me as a travel nurse, it gave me the opportunity to travel, to see, different areas. Coming in on this side as a director of nursing, I really get to walk alongside our nurses to help them. Nursing can be a lot of fun, but it can also be very stressful. Again, in our current situation, our current culture right now. So I get to provide that support. It's we as a company, we're nurse owned, we're nurse operated. Our founder was a nurse. We have 24/7 clinical support. We have a clinical team that the nurse gets out there and they find themselves in a situation, or they just need to have somebody to talk to that understands what they're going through. So we can be there for them. So it's very rewarding from our standpoint that is not out there on those front lines, but are there with them, supporting them as they are.
Share how the relationship works in terms of the healthcare organizations, the hospitals. Talk about relationship building on that side and being the matchmaker, so to speak.
Well, the good thing about being the matchmaker is when you are clinicians, you can make that match more efficiently. So knowing the background that we have in healthcare, when a facility, depending on what kind of facility is, when they have a need, we can have that relationship. So we have account managers that have relationships with facilities that can really dial into what their needs are, so that we can find the best candidate and vet the best nurse for that particular need. So if it's a rural hospital or a metropolitan hospital, we really have that knowledge of what they need. And then therefore, when we are vetting and onboarding, our healthcare professionals, we make that match so that way the facility's happy, the traveler's happy, and, ultimately the outcome is that the patient is going to get the care that they need.
You've mentioned, obviously the pandemic has caused a lot of issues. Speak to what COVID-19, the pandemic, has caused for you, especially with the nurses and the different hospitals and the groups that you work with. So talk about the pandemic and what it's meant to you all.
Okay, so, when the pandemic initially, started back in March, we as a business thought we were going to have this great opportunity to provide this service. The hospitals were the facilities were going to need nurses. Well, what we found as a business is it really was the exact opposite. With cities closing down elective surgeries, with ERs not being as busy because people weren't going into the ER, we actually found that what it did is we had more of a downtick. We had nurses that for the first time in their careers were actually finding themselves unemployed. So we had to really, and they were afraid. We had a lot of nurses that were afraid. The PPEs were not being, supplied at the facilities. So we really had an opportunity to get up underneath them and to support them, to let them know that we were going to be there for them throughout this entire pandemic, that we were going to support them and, continue to work with them. And that when the time came, which it has come, that, everything is back open, that we would be there for them and, put them into their next opportunities. So that's kind of where we are in this in today.
What's been the attitude for the nurses? Because you mentioned now the resiliency and the support on your end. Have you seen it turn around? Have you seen that resiliency, that positive attitude? How have they been weathering the pandemic on their end mentally?
Well, we're nurses, so this is how we're wired. We go into healthcare because this is why we chose our profession. So this isn't new for us. It is, I've seen the resiliency from I can only speak personally from those that are working for us who have, they have stepped up, they have called, they have been called and have responded to the call is, I guess, what I was trying to say. We have our company meetings every Thursday, and we get to, come together as an organization. And one of our main focuses in those meetings is to, we talk about business and we talk about changes within it, but we always try to end the meeting with, remember to support our clinicians. We have a job here because of the job that they are out there doing. So they have been resilient from day one. Yeah, it's been good. It's been good.
What would you say, going back to especially your personal experience as a travel nurse, share, from a nurse's perspective, the opportunity to travel, to be immersed in new cultures? What is that like in terms of the benefit on their end?
Well, the benefits today in today's, travel nurse is far exceeding from where it was in my generation. I think most travel companies, we have an excellent benefit package. Back in the day, travelers only traveled in certain seasons of their career because of benefits. That was a big thing. If you weren't married or if you had children. Now we see travelers travel couples with their children. So the opportunities that travel nurses have is exponential. I mean, there's nothing that they can't do. They can take their husbands, their children, their dogs, their cats, anything. So it's truly a life experience. So what we're seeing is that you can do it in all seasons of your career, all seasons of your life. It's not for the clinician that hasn't started a family yet or isn't married yet or in retirement, which you're like, okay, my kids are grown, I'm going to go travel now. Now what we're seeing in today's, industry, it's anything and everybody is, taking advantage of the opportunity.
What would you say is a trend or something, going back, like you said, where it wasn't that way always, that this is kind of a newer evolution? What would you say is either another evolution or a trend or something that has been fairly common over the last few years, or maybe is where we're headed in terms of the industry?
Honestly, I think it's roles. I think that there are more opportunities now. So it used to be your traveler was your bedside nurse, right? That was your nurse that was strictly going to do like patient care. What we see now is as the growing, nursing population, there's a lot of people going into higher education. There's a lot of people going for nurse practitioner and other leadership roles. And what we actually are seeing is a lot of those positions for travelers open up. A lot of times they'll be there just kind of like an interim, like, hey, come, here's a position. So I think some of those higher roles, those higher leadership roles are kind of what we're seeing as a trend.
What would you offer as encouragement for someone who wants to go into the field of nursing? What would your encouragement be to them?
I think if you remain passionate, I think anybody, just like with any job or any profession, it's one of the things that I always taught my children, that if you choose something that you're passionate about, it'll never be a job. You'll never work a day in your life. And I know that's some cliche that somebody else has that I stole, but it's true. I mean, for me, there was never a day that I didn't love going to work. I've always loved being a nurse. I've always loved patient care. So I think as long as you're choosing the profession because it's something you're passionate about, you'll be successful in it. Your patients will be well cared for, and you'll enjoy it. And that, I think that's how to be successful as a clinician.
Talk about philanthropy and community engagement. I know that scholarships are a big part of your give back and your efforts on your end. So talk about philanthropy and community engagement.
That's a huge part of who we are. We love to give back. We love to support our uprising nurses and clinicians. We are very present here in our local community. We have Lowenberg, School of Nursing. We have, Baptist University. So we love to give back. End of year, we support our local hospitals. So that's a huge part. I mean, we've got an OR simulation room that has been named after us at Lowenberg. So it is vital, being that we are nurse owned and we're nurse operated, it's vital to who we are.
What's been one of your favorite moments working for Travel Nurses Inc. and OR Nurses Nationwide?
Oh, wow. To see the success of our recruitment staff. I think I'm super proud of the staff that we have right now. When March came and, we had this global pandemic, we went from in office 5 days a week to remote working, and watching our staff, from our, accounting department, from our recruitment team, from our marketing team, watching them navigate the change of not, having, your other peers right beside you, and to come together and collaborate has probably been what I am most proud of.
Carry that forward. And what's something that you've learned in this pandemic that you think is going to make you stronger, either as an organization or for you personally?
I think it's the collaboration. For me personally, it was, we took the challenge of being remote and we made it happen. We fine-tuned and strengthened our collaboration tools. Even the things that we thought we were doing super, in the office, we have taken that and, fast forwarded it 100%. So I think going forward, I think we built stronger relationships, within the company because of the collaboration. I think that, I think everybody, we have the corporate good news meeting that we have every Thursday. And we have this segment on there where we do shout outs and kudos. To sit in those meetings and to hear everybody on the screen shout out different people, within our organization and say, thank you, payroll for really staying on top of this, or thank you, marketing, for that ad that you placed out, or, just even across, the divisions. We have our local OR nurses nationwide, and we have our travel. The way that they've collaborated as teams has been really extraordinary. So that's an amazing thing that I think that we will take from this experience and launch forward.
Awesome. Wrap up with contact information. So talk about your website and where can we go to learn more?
Well, you can go to travelnursesinc.com. We got a brand new revised website that's amazing and beautiful, and it's got everything that you need to know. It tells you everything about how to be a traveler, where to be a traveler, what events are in that area that you're looking to go, what your furnish finders. There's all kind of ways to find housing on there. So that's where you would go.
Well, Cristina, greatly appreciate all you and your team do. Thank you for coming on the show.
All right. Thanks so much.